Magashule has been largely condemned. Among the many reactions, Parliament described it as repulsive, saying it is against the right to freedom of expression listed in the Constitution. So what happened was a group of protesters, some wearing ANC T-shirts, stormed the event in Sandton, tearing pages from the publication entitled Gangster State, Unravelling Ace Magashule's Web of Capture. The book gives details of alleged corruption and state capture in the Free State during Magashule's tenure as Premier in that province. To discuss this further, we're joined in studio by Samkelo Mokhine. He's the Executive Director of the Freedom of Expression Institute. Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Leanne.
So what was your initial reaction when you saw what was going on, when the protesters stormed into the book launch and then started singing and tearing out pages of the book?
Yes, it was a shock initially, especially in this day and age. But also we followed up with condemnation about how this could have happened. And part of the context is the issue that Ace Magashule himself has said he will challenge the book legally, but hasn't done so. So what did this group have to do if the person concerned didn't even do anything about it?
Yeah. You know, I know that some of the comments that came through, if I read it correctly, was even from, I think, the CEO of Exclusive Books, saying that you could see that this was a very well-planned and well-organized disruption to this event. So this was obviously organized somewhere by someone, and they came in and did this to disrupt it. And, you know, so it couldn't have come as a surprise. No,
absolutely not. In the sense that as well, I think the follow-up interviews done with ANC Youth League members did indicate that it was just the first step, and then the next step would go on to burning of books and whatever else. So organized, they really did look like it.
Yeah. You know, the reality is, and we need to look at this, is there is a healthy distinction between a healthy protest and fighting at democracy, because there's been a lot to allow authors, allow individuals to freely express and talk to some of the issues that they need to be spoken about. Let's draw this distinction between what happened today and that silencing of democracy.
Yeah, I think in terms of the freedom of expression, it's an opportunity to educate. Even the protesters themselves have the right to protest, but disrupting and tearing up books, that shouldn't happen. And balancing that against respect for the rights that the journalist has and all the people that were congregated at that function in order to hear what the journalist had to say and in order to let the book launch proceed. So that was very disruptive, that was very disrespectful of rights that are enshrined in the Constitution.
Talk to me about the Constitution. What does the Constitution say about freedom of expression?
It is, freedom of expression is a right that people have. And freedom of expression should not only be seen in just the manner in which people can outline their views, but it also should be taken in its proper context, that there's freedom of expression in terms of the arts, in terms of the way journalists have to work, in terms of sharing of ideas and education. So that should be seen in its much more well-rounded form.
Yeah. You know, something like this would obviously be a great threat to people in future, because it seems that every author that has come out with an expose of sort against politicians and against things that are happening behind the scene have come under much pressure, whether it be death threats, whether it be events of burning of books, tearing out pages. It's not the first time we've seen something like this, okay, albeit in different forms. But yes, is this going to stop a lot of people from saying, you know what, I actually value my life too much to do this?
Yeah, but that's the effect that it has, that people now start to have second thoughts about producing books, which are absolutely necessary to outline what is happening in our own country. And it's one of those things that even internationally has happened, like the Salman Rushdie book, The Satanic Verses, and the reaction to it. So it has happened, but for us here, protecting these values needs vigilance and need nipping it in the bud as soon as it happens. And I think it's very encouraging that the reaction from the ANC and other formations and people in general has condemned this first and foremost, but we need to see action taken against these individuals to make sure that we protect these values.
Yeah, it is encouraging, but on the other side, on the flip side, then you get a branch of the ANC Youth League out in the Free State, saying that on Monday they're going to have a book burning ceremony and they're going to burn this book, and there are lies spoken in it, and all of these things, although that has since been told by Luthuli House, don't even think about doing something like that. But there is this belief that you can do these kind of things. But the reality is this is against the Constitution and hence is against our law.
Absolutely. And I think it also provides an opportunity possibly for education, that if the mother body can come back and say, these are our constitutional values, this shouldn't have happened, but a branch of the Youth League has done this. So this means that either the ANC has not done sufficient education in all its branches, or that people, despite the education, despite the knowledge, think that the atmosphere allows them to do these things and come down hard on journalists. So it is something that, I mean, given what has happened, even with the Secretary General of the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, that, you know, can pick an argument with a journalist, and some of those things feed into a narrative that maybe these people are ripe for the taking.
Yeah. I wonder what's happened to some of the individuals that embarked on this protest. I mean, there were photographs of faces, there were witnesses to this. I wonder if anything's going to happen to them, because at the end of the day, they were involved in illegal activities, whether it be the destruction of property, disrupting functions, intimidation. There are so many charges that could be put and laid against the individuals that disrupted that. But again, I imagine this is going to just be swept under the carpet.
Yeah, the motherboard, which is the ANC, seemed to be distancing itself
and leaving, members.
Yes, and leaving it up to the SAPS or the authorities to deal with it. I think it's something that has happened in their name. They are part of the ANC. They were wearing ANC regalia. So in as much as you want the authorities to deal with it, the mother body also has to be seen or doing the same in terms of disciplining its members.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Let's talk to the ANC itself, because we saw, and it was something that I think was widely witnessed by a lot of people, Jessie Duarte coming through, talking to a journalist the way she did on camera, and talking to a young journalist who's trying to do his work and ask the right questions, told him that he did not fight for the freedom of the media. He's too young to have done that, and he must just basically sit down. Again, what does this talk about? When we're talking to a journalist to tell this guy, you're not allowed to ask these questions, and you didn't even fight for this freedom, so you're almost not entitled to it. I mean, again, you've got the mother body who are condemning what happened there, but one of their top leaders is talking to a journalist that way.
No, absolutely, which is what I referred to as part of creating an atmosphere where people think the journalists are ripe for the taking. Because if a senior officer can do that to a journalist, then you can imagine the rank and file in the ANC might be looking at this and thinking, maybe this will be endorsed by the mother body because of what the incident with the Deputy Secretary General.
Yeah. Again, it's not the first time this has happened. And when I think members of the ANC are watching what's going on within the ranks, within the top leadership, they feel that this is the right thing to do and they can constantly do this. What do you think is the right way to handle something like this? How should the ANC go about disciplining members and drawing a line in the sand and saying, no, this is not the way you deal with things?
Yeah, I think the issue of the distancing and the condemnation was very necessary as a first step. But if that is not followed up by action, then you will have a repeat. That will definitely happen. And the ANC needs to be seen to be vigilant, to be protecting these rights that not only they fought for, but a whole lot of people and organizations fought for, to have them enshrined. So it shouldn't just be a matter that because I was there during the struggle, therefore other people who were not there or were not born do not have the right to exercise those rights. We all do, without exception. And the ANC should follow this up with disciplining their members.
Yeah. if we look to some of those individuals that actually took part in this, do you even think they know the contents of the book? Do you even think they've read it? I mean, obviously they look at the cover, they see that it's Ace Magashule, they see that this is the attack on their party, but the contents of the book, I mean, have they even looked at it? I mean, I know I'm asking you something that you possibly can't answer, but let's look there for a little bit. Are people educating themselves and saying, well, you know, maybe there is some truth to it, but people are allowed to write these things if they'd like to?
Yeah, I mean, part of the issue that cropped up as soon as the book came out was whether any of the people in the ANC that commented on the book had actually read it. So I would take it from there, moving backwards, and possibly people have not taken the time to read it through. And if they had read it, we still go back to the issue around if the person who's the subject of the book, which is Ace Magashule himself, has not legally challenged the book, what business do other people have of doing what they did?
Yeah.
And in terms of the subsequent reaction by Mr. Magashule, it's clear that he's also distancing himself from what has happened. And that should be a lesson to people in the ANC Youth League or other formations that want to take up fights that ideally shouldn't belong to them.
Yeah. Just finally, our media, are we under threat? Because lately it almost feels that way. You know, we've been watching, I mean, the amount of incidences that have happened on this program alone, where we've seen chairs being thrown during broadcasts, we've seen reporters being attacked on live camera, and just the fear of going out into the field because you are a target. What do you feel this is going to do to the landscape of media in South Africa?
No, absolutely. It leads to self-censorship, possibly, and it leads to people being much more careful about exercising their right to freedom of expression because of these reactions that people have had. So it has a cooling down effect on people's exercise of these fundamental rights, and it's absolutely wrong. Yeah. But as I indicated before, this needs vigilance. Any of the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution need vigilance, and as and when they are encroached upon, we need to come really down hard on people.
Thank you for talking to us. It's been great having you. Samkelo Mokhine, who is the Executive Director of the Freedom of Expression Institute, talking to us about the disruption of Pieter-Louis Myburgh's book launch that has sparked outrage and conversations about democracy and the freedom of speech in South Africa. Let's take a break. We'll have your news at 7 for you after this. Stay tuned.